Alright, Spooky Gang, I'm gonna give y'all the real. I've gone through all these streaming platforms, and as y'all know, I've done the best horror movies on Netflix, HBO Max, Tubi, and here we are now with Paramount Plus. And I'm gonna keep it funky with y'all. Paramount Plus ain't really have that many good horror movies. I mean, that's just the real of the situation. But despite all of that, I was able to come up with the 5 best horror movies that are on Paramount Plus. For all of you that are new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to your boy. We're on the road to 10K subs, so every subscriber matters, and it would mean the world to me. Like the video as well, and come rock with me as we go over the 5 best horror movies that are on Paramount Plus. Okay, so we're getting straight to it. The first movie that I wanted to talk about as far as some of the best that are on Paramount Plus is the movie Strange Darling. This is a movie that I've certainly mentioned before, but it is truly one of the best horror movies that came out last year. Strange Darling is a really unique movie and one that you can't really say that you've seen before, especially from a lot of the movies last year. You know, there isn't really any premise or any style cinematography wise that was anywhere near similar to this movie. And just to give a little bit of a background on what this movie is about, a man and a woman meet for what seems like a spontaneous hookup in a remote setting, but things quickly take a turn. In what started out as some consensual fantasy, the story escalates into this cat and mouse game between our two characters, literally a back and forth chase. And so really the duration of the movie is exactly that. The thing that's unique with this movie is like with our expectations on the movie and sort of challenging who we assume is the victim and who's the threat. And it also in a lot of ways explores the ideas around how people wear masks, so they may seem like, you know, they're this type of person, but they really turn out to be another. So, you know, people with facades, challenging how those roles shift under pressure. And stylistically, one thing that I really like about the movie is how the movie is shot in 6 chapters, but it's not shot in a chronological order. So we get bits and pieces of the story as the chapters go on. So, you know, it may start with chapter 5 and then jump to chapter 2, go to chapter 4, and then go back to 1, then 3, and then go back to 6 so you can see the ending. So you just never really know. I really like the time jumps in the movie. I love how it was shot on 35mm film, so it really gives it that nice gritty and cinematic look. It kind of in a lot of ways reminds me sort of how Tarantino filmed some of his movies, like kind of like a Kill Bill, kind of see a little bit of that type of deal in it, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just a really good movie overall. If you have not seen it, you really can't beat it. I would 100% recommend it, and that's why it's one of the best movies that are on Paramount Plus. The next movie that I wanted to talk about is The Collector. The Collector is one of my favorites for sure. It's about a handyman named Arkin, and he has a criminal past and he plans to rob a family's home to settle a personal debt. Well, he chooses a night when the family is supposed to be away, expecting an empty house, but upon entering, Arkin discovers that someone else has already infiltrated the home, transformed the house into this deadly maze filled with intricate traps. And once Arkin realizes that members of the family are still inside, he faces a real moral dilemma, and he has to figure out, you know, whether he's gonna do everything in his power to save them or just continue on with his plan and robbing them and getting on up out of there. Like, if you're a person that loves home invasion type movies and you love your slashers, I think this movie is kind of like a perfect combination of both. You get your silent killer, which everybody loves. He's relatively creepy, you know. He not only does he, you know, slash up a bunch of people or, you know, have them caught in these little intricate booby traps, but a lot of times he'll torture them before he kills them. It's little things like that that really make it a good movie. Visually, just the color palette was really good. I really like how muted the color palette was. You just see a bunch of blues and greens. And like I said, it's kind of similarly to Strange Darling, but just like that real gritty and atmospheric setting and look to the movie just really adds a lot of value. And then this movie also has a sequel called The Collection. Collection is kind of expanding on The Collector. It's a decent watch if you wanted to sort of, like I said, watch an expanded version of the story and kind of find out what happens at the end of this one. But in terms of it being as good as this one, no, like this one is truly a quintessential slasher for the late 2000s and like early 2010s. Like this movie is just pretty much perfect for that. The next movie/movies that are some of the best on Paramount Plus and definitely belong in the top 5 is my beloved Smile and Smile 2. I've talked endlessly about these movies, so I'm not even gonna go too crazy into them, but if you are truly a fan of just experiencing like dread and terror and just raw performances, raw scares, then Smile and Smile 2, you really can't go wrong. You get great protagonists in having Sosie Baker, and you have Naomi Scott in the second, and Both of them tear up their roles in two completely different ways. Both really know how to wear trauma and depression and anxiety on their faces, but just in two different aspects. The original Smile is smaller in scale, so you're really focusing on just like one person and like her family and her personal situation and everything. Whereas in Smile 2, you're dealing with somebody who is a celebrity and a pop star. So not only do you see her personal and inner family struggles that she has, but she has to also deal with that and be out in the public and all the different things that come with that as well, which like I said, it's on a grander scale. So they're two different flavors of the same thing, and they work beautifully together. And I can 100% say this is the best modern 1-2 punch for horror movies that you can watch, period. I don't care what anybody says, I'm sticking to that, because I just don't see an original and a sequel that are just that good over the past, I say at least almost 10 years. Like the last one that I can think of that is a good 1-2 punch is The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2. Like those two are amazing together, and I think that these two movies, Smile and Smile 2, fall right in line with those. So if you're a fan of some trauma monster that you can't see until the very end coming after you and people wearing these demonic smiles, then these are absolutely the movies for you. The next movie that I want to talk about as one of the best on Paramount Plus is the movie Talk to Me. This is also another movie that I've mentioned many times, and I mean, it's rightly so. These movies that I keep mentioning get mentioned again for a reason. It's because they are genuinely that good. And especially, as I traverse through all of the catalog of some of these streaming platforms, you just really see a lot of B and C grade movies. Like you just really they don't have a bunch of A tier horror movies. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with B tier horror movies, the ones that are just campy and kind of stupid and you just have a good time with, sure. But in terms of calling some of these movies the best that are available on a platform, there's no way I can say it. So that's why the movies like Smile and Talk to Me and some of these other movies that I reiterate keep popping up. But I say all that to say that amazing movie by A24. It follows this girl Mia who wants to go to this little party where pretty much people get possessed by this hand, and there's a whole story around that. And I'm not gonna go too far into depth with this, just because I mentioned it so many times. Yeah, like if you are looking for a really creative aspect on how people get possessed and the way that they play on it, then this is really the movie for you. Also has some really shocking imagery, which, the first time I watched it, I was like, like some of these scenes are like brutal, and they're really good. Like they really stick with you when it's time for you to go to bed. So yeah, Talk to Me is a banger. And the beauty of it is some of the producers and the creators of Talk to Me are dropping a new movie this week called Bring Her Back. And shout out to my boy Lucky for mentioning that, because I wasn't aware that they were dropping a new movie. But yeah, so you can actually check this new movie by A24 and those same creators of Talk to Me. You can check that out this week. One person that I talked to before has already seen it, and he said that it's probably the best horror movie of this year. It's really that good. So I definitely anticipate that movie, but yeah, for sure, I will 100% put my stamp on Talk to Me. And if you like Talk to Me, then you should check out Bring Her Back when it drops in theaters. And the last movies that I wanted to talk about is The Ring and Rosemary's Baby. So The Ring, we already know it's a classic. Everybody's very familiar with it. If you like Japanese horror and you like movies like Smile, well, a movie like The Ring is kind of like Smile's predecessor, or a movie like It Follows. Like you see a lot of elements and characteristics that you like about those movies in The Ring, and that's where they got a lot of those things from. Or in a lot of that inspiration from. So yeah, The Ring is obviously a classic that anybody should watch. But also with Rosemary's Baby, it is truly one of the best horror movies of all time. This is one of those movies that, of course, you have to make sure that you're one, in the mood to watch it, because it for sure is a slow burn, and also it's an older movie as well. And just for the people who are not familiar with Rosemary's Baby but may have heard of the title or something like that, it follows Rosemary and her husband Guy, who move into an apartment building in New York City hoping for a fresh start. Rosemary becomes pregnant under mysterious circumstances, sparking unease and strange occurrences. Rosemary's pregnancy progresses, and she starts to question who she can trust. She uncovers disturbing clues about her unborn child's future, and the true nature of those around her. And then a bunch of tension escalates, and then we get this really nice psychological thriller, to sort of finish the movie on out. So yeah, like I said, it's one of the best horror movies of all time. And so if you have not seen it, it's kind of like a rite of passage to see some of these movies, like Rosemary's Baby or The Shining, The Exorcist, so on and so forth. Halloween, yeah, you like these movies, you have to see it. But yeah, so that is all I have, Spooky Gang. Y'all comment down below what are some of your favorite horror movies that are on Paramount Plus. As I mentioned, there really isn't a lot to choose from. I cannot lie to y'all whatsoever. I can imagine a lot of y'all's list would be very similar to mine, but outside of that, comment down below too what you think of some of the movies that I did choose. As I mentioned in the intro, if you are new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, as we are on the road to 10K subs, and we're gonna keep grinding until we hit that. And as always, Spooky Gang, y'all already know how we rocking. Love y'all, and until next time, y'all stay blessed and y'all stay spooky.